Land investing is very different today than it was when David and I started. Back in 2015, 2016, we had to start small and carefully reinvest our profits because we only had our own capital to invest. Today's land investing landscape is much different, with investors willing to partner with you on deals. This enables you to scale faster and invest in opportunities that would be otherwise unattainable. Today, David and I are chatting with Reid and Halie Kurtenbach, founders of Parcel Funders, and some truly fantastic people. If you want to know how much money you can borrow for a deal, the advantages of smart money versus dumb money, and how to scale your business faster than you ever thought possible, listen on for critical information on how to take your land business to the next level. If there's one thing I've learned in my business career, it's that I don't have all the answers. Look, I'm an ambitious guy, and I like to make progress fast. The secret to achieving success fast is to harness the brain power of other people in the community. That's what the Land.MBA Smart Bar is all about. As veteran investor Jesse Marchand said, the Smart Bar gave me the motivation and knowledge I needed to push through the tough times and accelerate my path to success. Seven-figure investor Mitch Milam likes to say, there's one meeting each week that I never miss. It's the Land.MBA Smart Bar. It's like happy hour with my land investing buddies. I always learn something. So if you want to network with like-minded people, make new friends, learn heaps, get questions answered, answer questions for others, learn new strategies, get accountability, and overall, get inspired while having a great time, check out the Land.MBA Smart Bar. For a short time, podcast listeners can get 20% off the annual plan, which comes to an insane $86 per month. Compare this to other programs which charge $250 a month or more. This is hands down the best deal you're going to find and the best way to invest in your success. So don't wait. Please go to land.mba/mastermind. That's land.mba/mastermind and use promo code podcast22 to join today. Hello, all you gorgeous entrepreneurial land investors. My name is Howard Zonder. I'm here with my partner, David Van Steenkiss, and we are honored today to have with us, I always say, I was about to say Reid and Halie Kurtenbach, but of course in my head it was saying Curtin Halie Reidenbach, because I do that every single time. Okay, Reid and Halie Kurtenbach. I got that right?
Yes, it's
excellent.
perfect.
Excellent.
And everybody calls me Kurt, so.
Everyone.
Oh, see, and I thought I was special, but that's all right.
You are, but yeah, everybody else, I guess, is special too in that way.
Yeah, well, I people have told me I'm special in the past, but I think they mean the other thing about special. So anyway. So thank you all for joining us today on this call, and many of you already know of Reid and Halie and their business Parcel Funders, but they are very active in the land business on the funding side, and they've got not only have they've got a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience on the financial aspects of deals, but because they work with so many different people, they've really got their pulse on the market. And so I'm really excited to have you guys on the show today and find out what you guys are hearing about this crazy world we're living in.
Thank you. I think you give us more credit than we deserve. We just kind of learn as we go. So.
All right.
Well, so do we. That's
all
awesome.
Right, Dave, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. Well, cool, guys. Hey, thanks for coming on, and it's a pleasure to have you. I know, Reid, we've had you on once before. It was a while back, and you were really just kind of getting started with your funding organization, and now you guys have grown in leaps and bounds, and now it looks like Halie's has joined you in much more of a role, and we'd love to really just have a conversation with you guys about tell us about your business and what you do with funding land deals, and also just about your journey and how you got here. And then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn things over to Halie because she is the boss of Parcel Funders. She's the owner.
I've always been behind the scenes until, we have so much going on. But yeah, so we created Parcel Funders. As everyone knows, we funded land deals before we created the actual company. But we created Parcel Funders just to kind of put everything together. And we get to do joint venture deals with land investors. And, we help land investors do deals that they could not do on their own. Maybe they want to send out more mailers or whatever they want to do. We bring the finances in to help them scale faster.
So I think from a journey standpoint, we tested the market. We saw a lot of people. We heard about you and Howard, and I think I talked to Howard a long time ago to say, is this BS or is he really making money at this? And then I started talking to other people and they said they were making money. But well, I think probably the easiest way to get into this is to start funding deals for people. And so that's kind of how it started. And then I really enjoyed it. And I convinced Halie to get involved too as well, because she's very analytical. She's very kind of by the book, which is nice. I'm more of the idea person and systems and stuff. But so she got involved and we started really enjoying it. We used our solo 401k. We used our self-directed IRA. Now we're using our self-directed HSA. And then just personal funds. And then we decided, hey, let's make a business out of this. So we decided to do that. And so from now, I think it was really earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This year we kind of really formed the Parcel Funders officially and had the website up. But we do transactional funding, joint venture funding, turnkey funding, and we fund mailers as well.
Really?
So that could be
Interesting.
Texas, that could be all kinds of other types of advertising. Because there's a lot of people that have honed in on the market, but maybe they get tapped out when it comes to cash. And so if we really understand how they're marketing, we are fine with funding their deals. And there's no additional points or fees with that. The only thing that we require is that any deals that come from that mailer, we get first rights to fund.
Gotcha.
It's funny. We talk to our students and prospective students all the time, and one of the things I always say is that it's so much different now than when Dave and I started. Because when Dave and I started, there were no people funding deals. That's why everybody started in the desert squares, is because it's all we could afford. We had to fund all of those deals ourselves. And I would tell people right from the beginning is that if you want to get away from the masses, you either have to go into a different geography than the standard desert square geographies, and or you have to go up market and get away from that. And a lot of people weren't able to do that because they were only able to fund their own deals. But with the introduction of Parcel Funders and companies like yourself, it's really changed the market. And we've got 1.9 trillion acres in the lower 40, or not trillion, 1.9 billion acres in the lower 48, of which 6% is developed. So that's the market opportunity, but most people weren't able to consider that larger market because a lot of it was just out of their reach. And so that's why I think you have identified and filled a really, really important market need. So that's amazing. Good entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's been exciting working with different investors. They come in all shapes and sizes, and it's really interesting to see how they analyze deals. And we learned so much from the investors when they bring us their due diligence information, and then that's the time where we can ask them questions. And it's not so much to question them, it's more so much for us to learn and maybe be that sounding board for them as well. So it's been kind of like a crash course in land investing. Like, we've taken a lot of different land investing courses, and that gets you pretty far. But there's something to be had for actually doing deals and just jumping in the deep end to really understand what you're going to run into and all the different nuances. I mean, it's pretty nuts.
And
Absolutely.
we can take all of our experience, right? Like if we have some certain experience that maybe a land investor doesn't, we can bring up before we purchase the property, because it's best to know everything up front versus
Hmm.
after we purchase it.
I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. So one person reached out to me recently, and I didn't name drop you, David, but I was telling him, he listens to this, so he'll probably know who you are now. But he was talking to me about a quiet title property that he wants me to fund,
Hmm.
and I was like, I know someone that's gone through that recently and had a very arduous journey with a lawyer. So make sure that you really understand all the different steps and if that lawyer can really deliver on time. And how long is your due diligence period with the seller? Are they willing to extend the due diligence time? Because you could have money wrapped up with an attorney and then lose out on the deal. So
Yeah.
you probably could share more about that experience, but that by you talking to me about that and me hearing it from others, that was just something that I shared with him, that he was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I thought it was only going to take like 1 to 2 months for him to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it can take, yeah, it depends. It could take a long time. I think the one I shared with you was just because the lawyer was so backed up, and every lawyer in that area was. But I have another one that it was actually very simple. It wasn't really even quite quiet title, but the seller would not. We actually offered to go ahead and buy the property and clean it up ourselves, and because we knew enough to where we knew it could get cleaned up. And but the lady who was selling it was so loyal to her family attorney, and she was having her family attorney do it. But my real estate attorney was overseeing what he
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
Gonna check it. But they took, in the middle of the process, their attorney took a 2-month vacation. It was 1 month, and then he called towards the end of it and said, I'm going to stay out for another month. I was livid, because this was a property that I had under contract for $8,000. It was worth $225,000.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's
And
why
the
I was
market could be changing too, right? So
yeah, we should have closed in April.
Right.
And so then it got into, like, I don't know, late summer, and I was expecting to finally close it, and I was ticked off because the market had shifted. I'm like, yeah, I'll be lucky to get, I don't know, $1.75 for it. I'm still not going to complain about that margin, but still. Anyway, they failed to perform, and now I'm suing them. So we'll let you know how that comes out.
Yeah.
Keep us informed. I mean, those are all the things I hate that we have to learn from your hard knocks.
Right. Right.
I mean,
But
hopefully.
yeah, I guess the lesson from that was I wanted to just go in and say, look, we'll buy the property. We'll buy it. But I didn't want to, like, tip them off that they were selling us that property was worth so much more.
Right.
Anyway, hindsight, I should have done it, because I learned that the family is, what happened was they wouldn't sign the extension because a cousin found out about the whole thing and realized, oh, that's the last piece of property in this town tied to our family, and our great grandfather founded this town, and we want to build a memorial to him. I'm like, well, you don't need 1.5 acres. I even offered to give them a billboard easement to put a statue up. Anyway, deal fell apart. It's so everybody who's listening to that, in a few months, I'll give you an update, see if I won my lawsuit or if I just got a nice fat attorney bill.
Wow. So this is a topic that's big in any kind of VC backed venture. I've been in some technology companies in the past that were VC backed, and there's always this conversation about smart money versus dumb money. And a lot of people, and even in the technology field, they do like the dumb money because it's cheaper and you don't have to try to explain yourself every 5 minutes when they're calling up and saying, how's my investment doing? However, the reality is there are some real and very significant value that's brought by smart money. whether it's knowledge or Rolodex or capital, or, or just whatever it is. And when I look at what you guys are doing, I see smart money. So I'd really like to understand that bit of process. I mean, you say that, yeah, they bring you the due diligence and you look at it and you're learning from them. But I know the reality is learning is a two-way street, and when you're working with so many people and you're out there capturing all this information from guys like Dave and everybody else, you're able to bring that to especially these young investors that don't have a ton of experience.
Right.
It just seems like a game changer.
Yeah, we learn so much, but we also, we bring our knowledge, and anytime someone sends in a deal, we want all of their due diligence information. But I personally will also do my own due diligence. So I'll look at what they have. Do the numbers make sense, with what we need to meet first? And then I actually will do my own digging before I even really review theirs too much. Just because, again, we want to be able to continue funding deals. So we have to be smart.
Yeah.
But so, I'll do that and then look at their information and, but yeah, it's great because we work with newer investors. And so, anything that we've learned, we'll share, or if we're have any like pause in a deal, we'll share why, and kind of work together to see if it's still going to work or not.
Mm-hmm.
And you're being a little high level on that because you go into a ton of detail with, going through your due diligence checklist. You reach out to at least 3 brokers and get information from there. You contact the counties. You, if we need to, for instance, talk to an excavator, if we're going to be putting in a road, we contact all the excavators around there to get pricing. There's a lot of things that Halie does that she's kind of.
Well, we don't do, I won't do all the work. Like people have brought in stuff, but the work has to be done. And then I'll look at it. But if they bring any realtors, I'll use those. But yes, I might call, if we know one in the area that we've worked with, or, it's always good to have more than one opinion. Yes. Because one realtor might just want the listing. And so we've learned that too. We had a realtor, list the property, and then the next week she's like, "You guys are priced too high by $20,000."
That is realtor 101. Just get the listing.
And we went with the price you gave us.
Yeah. Great. Like, where do you think we pulled that from? You're the one who talked to us. I had a very direct conversation with one lady one time. I was like, "Are you trying to sell this to a friend, or I'm not sure what's happening, but I'm not comfortable with it." But yeah, so if they bring one realtor, I will call different realtors. We want to see the investor do all of that due diligence. I will ask them. There's some things that we'll verify. We have one that we currently have that we need to extend some of the utilities. So we knew it was going to be extended by, it wasn't too far. Well, come to find out, it's going to be $50,000.
Wow.
And the realtor we worked with, we used a couple, but the investor knew that we were going to have to do the extension. We knew that, but again, we didn't get an estimate. Well, our realtor is trying to do such a great job. They went and asked, and found out themselves what it would cost. And now, we know it's going to be $50,000. And so we're trying to sell that property. But, so we always get multiple opinions, because if they are, if 2 are way off, well, we need to find a third. Where's that third lie?
Right.
And and luckily we have margin in that deal.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, is that what I'm seeing is that maybe there's dumb money, I guess, will probably fund at 60-70% of loan to value. For us, we're at 50% or less. Yeah. And with the way the market is, we just want to have a long-term business relationship with our investors. We don't want to lose money, and we don't want to waste their time, even if they have no money in the deal.
Yeah.
And we don't want to start off a business relationship with them if we do a bad deal.
Sure.
So there's a couple of things that come to play, but we're still learning so much. I mean, and even with that realtor, I think you run into some challenges with some brokers that you deal with or realtors that where she was volunteering that information to all buyers. We had 6 buyers interested, and she was like, "Oh, by the way, it's going to cost this much to put all in the utilities." You don't think that the buyers are going to run away when they hear that? I was like, "Are you crazy?"
So I was like, are you telling them it's going to cost $50,000? That's supposed to be their due diligence. That's not like something that we tell them. She's like, well, I have to, by the law or whatever. So I actually called her managing broker, who we signed with originally. And I was like, you do not have to say the price. We didn't tell you that price. Like, they should do their own due diligence.
Yeah. And
like,
she's not representing them, right?
Right.
She's representing you.
Yeah. So I was like, we never told you that information. You went and found it. Okay, fine. You should have found it before we bought it, but
yeah.
Yeah. But so then he was like, I don't think she's telling that. And I'm like, no, she's telling them the price. So now they're going to just say an extension and they can do their own due diligence, which is what should happen. Like, no one tells us that kind of stuff. It's part of our due diligence. And now we know what kind of extension, what's that going to potentially cost is another question we have.
And the other thing too is, we maybe quoted that price, but maybe they have a friend or a relative that can do some of that work for them at a cheaper price.
Yeah.
So I think it's up to them to determine really what it is. And I don't want to be on the hook to say it costs this much, because it could be more than that. It could be less than that. Yeah. So
yeah, exactly. I really love your approach, and it's certainly having 2 people doing it, it's needed. And I want to speak a little bit about smart money versus dumb money. So when you're I used to flip houses, so I started with hard money. Hard money's expensive. Smart, but hard money is most of the time it's smart money. You get a partner in that deal. Now, hard money's a loan versus an equity play, but it's the same principle, and the guys that are charging a little bit more in hard money, they're charging a little bit more because they're bringing value to the table. They're bringing experience and knowledge and connections and things like that. So, let's translate that into land funding people like yourselves. You get what you pay for. And if you're new, so speaking to the audience here, if you're new, there's a great deal of value in working with a company like Parcel Funders, because you get that extra set of eyeballs on the property. Yep. Because they have a vested interest. They're not just, even if they were a lender versus an equity partner, same thing. They've got a vested interest. But, you get the experience of their eyeballs, and not only their eyeballs, but being in it for a while and being, let's say, in a business where they become prolific in the industry. If they can't figure it out, or they got a question, they got a Rolodex of people they can call and get help, myself included. Hey, if you ever experience this, blah, 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 like the quiet title thing. And that's the same thing that, like, when you hire a coach, and not to tout our land MBA or anything, but when you're in a program with a mentor and a community, you've got that community to get answers from. And if that direct community doesn't have the answers, they all know people, so we can go find the answers for you. And so there's a lot of value. Now, when you get more experience, you get to a point where you're humming along, you're starting to use your own money, but you can't keep using your own money. You will run out at some point. And you find, family, friend, people in the industry who are like, yeah, I'm happy to make 10, 12% returns. Great. That's awesome. Cheap money and land. And that's where we all aspire to be eventually, but now, but you're getting that cheap money because it's dumb money, and not that person's dumb, but they don't know the industry. They don't know the business. And so you have a little bit of a trade-off. But until you're a certain point and you're confident, there's a lot of value in using these services. So,
and I think the other thing too is I completely agree with you on that. I think that's everybody's goal, is to find the cheapest money possible, essentially. As once they reach a certain level of experience, I think we have certain people that are way more experienced than us that still use us just because they want an accountability partner.
yeah.
And that it's worth it to them. And then there's other folks that run out of money because they're doing, like, we funded a deal that was $300K. And so, that $300K, they're thinking, could I put that towards mailers? Could I put that towards other type of advertising or prospecting campaigns? Yeah. So let me pull in somebody else. And sometimes family has that type of money and other times they don't. So that's one of the keys that I think it just depends on the situation. And
Yeah.
we always say, if you don't feel comfortable going with us, go with someone that you feel really comfortable with, because it's not a marriage, but it is kind of like a partnership in a way. And we're a sounding board. So we're basically in the back seat or wherever, like the co-pilot seat, but we're not running the show day in, day out, unless they want us to be. They say, hey, we want you to disposition the property.
Right.
No, we're only focused on this, the acquisition side. But I think you make a really good point that people just have to go with what they feel comfortable with. And if they can find cheaper money, then they should do that if that fits their I don't know, their mode of operation or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, it could be deal by deal. They may have a deal that's, it's in a price point, it's in the type of property, it's in the air, it's something they've done before and they feel very comfortable with it. So they're like, I'm going to go get cheaper money on this one. But this other deal over here, there's a little more hair on that dog. I need some help. I'll feel more comfortable using the smarter money. And
So
I'm at a point where I would do that, when I come across the deal too.
So Kurt, are you just Kurt? I can't stop doing that.
I tell people just, they say Dave or David. I say, just don't call me late for dinner and roll with it.
Baldilocks. Okay. So, Reid, you just said something which was something I wanted to ask about, because when we had you on this podcast a long time ago, you guys were just getting started and you're focused on funding deals. And the option of having you do the sales and marketing of properties, that didn't exist at that time, but you do that now, right?
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that option, because I think that's true. Especially, I've been hearing this more and more. Like when people first get into the business, we teach them everything, but they say, well, you know what? I just want to focus on the acquisition right now, and I want to master that. And the best way for me to master that is to partner with somebody like yourself, who not only can provide the funding, but do the disposition on the other side. And then once I feel like I've got that acquisition skill really zipped up, then maybe I'll start focusing on the marketing and sales. But until then, it's nice to know I can have somebody else to do that for me.
Yeah. So it's pretty simple. I mean, essentially, we just trade spots with them. So on the sales side. Sorry, you're hearing a dog in the background.
You need to speak a little bit louder.
Yeah. So essentially what we end up doing is we take over the disposition side. So once we close on the property, then we give them updates. So we find the broker that lists the property. If we want to do a flat fee listing, we'll do a flat fee listing, but we'll work in tandem. Everything is done through email communication. So rather than playing middleman, them calling us, we just keep them on all communication, whether it's with the broker, if it's with the title company when we're going to sell it, if it's with any other things that we're having to do to the property, if we have to get a survey, we keep them in the loop. And then it really comes down to when we get an offer, we collectively communicate either through email or jump on the phone with a broker and talk through it with them. If they want to be that involved, if they feel like, no, we trust you, then we go through and say, here's some of the offers that we got. And we talk through the terms. One thing that I'll mention that I think a lot of people get excited about is when they get an offer, they just look at the offer, the amount, but they don't look at the terms. And I think that's very important to say, okay, well, yeah, maybe they're giving you a full price offer, but they want, more than they want 60 days to close, or they got to get a loan, or all these other stipulations, or they want you to get a survey or you to do all these other things. So we really try to look at the terms and the price that they're offering and kind of go from there. So we discuss that with the individual that we're partnering with. And then we collectively agree to, okay, we're going to counter back at this. And then again, that's through email communication generally. And then once they accept, we communicate with the title company and they're part of that entire process. But they're kind of stepping in our shoes at that point, being a co-pilot, and we're kind of running the show for them. And then at the closing, it's really easy. We just figure out what the amounts were that were invested in the property. We subtract that from what we have, what we purchased the property for, what we're selling it. And then from there, it's just disbursements are done. So pretty simple. It's a easier way for folks to kind of get through deals. It's a little bit different of a percentage because our fees change monthly. And so if you sell it within a month, it's this percentage, and then it kind of goes up from there. But if it's something where we're managing the deal completely, then the splits are a little bit different because we're actually having to do a lot more work on the deal. It's not as, say, passive. But I can tell you that even being a funder, I've talked to a lot of people that are very interested. They've seen us talk about funding or heard about it and from somebody else, and they're like, wow, I really want to get into funding deals. And I'm like, it's not passive, it's quite active.
Yeah.
So and there's things that go wrong, and it's not like putting money in the stock market and just stepping away and hoping that it goes up or receiving a dividend. It's definitely not like that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it totally does. I wanted to just shift gears for 1 second, but stay on this idea of the more the newbie investor. So going back to the technology experience and how VCs operate, VCs mostly, not completely, but mostly are not investing in the idea. They're investing in the people. If I trust if I've got a good feeling about these people, I like the way they operate, I like the way they think, I believe that no matter what happens, they're going to follow through and figure out a way to be successful no matter what. Most VCs kind of come at an idea and they're like, I fully suspect that in 6 to 12 months, this is going to be a completely different business you're in, but it'll be the people.
Yeah, they pivot. I've seen, I forget what, I'm trying to think of different case studies, but I've read many of them where, maybe Peter Thiel invested in a startup and it started out one way, it wasn't very successful. And then they shifted gears because they figured out what the target market was, and then it became wildly successful. Or another VC that did that. I think there's many different things. I mean, right.
One of the classic examples is Twitter, because when Twitter started, they were going to build a podcast platform. And then one day, I don't remember which one of the guys came in and he said, okay, Apple just announced that they're doing Apple Podcasts, so we have nothing. So let's put our thinking caps on, guys. And what's his name? Probably the guy who was recently the CEO that looks like Rasputin. I think it was his idea. He says, well, I had this kind of crazy idea where you can send, short text through whatever technology, and thus Twitter was born. So when new people are coming to you, is that something that you're doing? Are you vetting them as investors to say, okay, do I have a feeling that you're going to be the kind of partner that's going to follow through and be, we know what we're going to bring to you. We're going to give you everything we got, but we need to make sure that you're going to be there as well.
Yeah. So we, when we work with new investors, and we work with a lot of them, we do find some people coming in to land investing without doing any sort of coaching or any sort of course or anything like that, just kind of off of just some YouTube stuff. So in those cases, depending on, where they are, we do encourage some sort of course, because there's so many things, you learn at the beginning, that you're not going to just pick up, looking at YouTube. So, but what we do is we always have a conversation. So first I'll look at the deal. I try to set up a call, especially with investors we haven't worked with before, to learn a little bit about them. We like to know their why, their goals. And, I've found that if an investor is open to feedback or questions on their due diligence, not that, again, like Reid mentioned, we're not questioning them about the work that they've put into it, but, we need to trust but verify everything. So we found, most of the people that we work really well with are open to that. They like learning stuff from us. They want our opinion. And, with newer investors, I might ask them a question and, I can kind of teach them something that maybe they haven't learned yet or didn't know about. So
there's been some investors that sometimes get a little bit agitated at some point. Very few that we run across, but when we ask them, hey, did you check into this? Did you check into that? And when they push back and say, well, I've just done my due diligence, so do you want to fund it or not? And then we already know probably not a good fit for us.
Right.
Because we know, for me, I'm the type that I don't know everything. I'm always learning. And if someone's pushing back or asking me questions, there's a lot of times that maybe I didn't think about it. And I want them to know that I'm going to be a sounding board. And then I hope that they will be a sounding board for us too. So if it starts off like that, I know it's probably not going to work. And we think that's happened maybe 1 or 2 times. And we've just kind of said, I don't think we're a good fit. So
yeah, hey, it's nice to be in a position to do that. And it's a good way to handle your business. I know that, when we worked together a while back, and that was again in your very early days, so you didn't have all the systems and processes, but you were very detailed, and I really appreciated it. We had some great conversations, and working, and it was, I think we were both learning too, kind of how we should do this, how we should structure it, kind of feeling each other out, and it was a good experience. But the one takeaway that I had working with you guys was that you don't leave any stone unturned. And so anyway, it just accentuates the value that you guys provide. I would rather somebody get under my skin a little bit and be a pain in my ass, but they're protecting me because they're protecting themselves as well. And so it's a good pain in the ass.
Yeah. And there's been times where someone has approached us with a deal, and many times actually, and they're thinking it's worth X. We've had experience in the market, or we've talked to a couple different brokers, and our number of what the market value is maybe $10,000-$15,000 less. And so we're not trying to cause the deal to fall through, but we have sometimes gone back to them and said, hey, can you renegotiate with the seller because we found this, and this, or this broker's saying this, or 2 brokers have told us this, and we're a little concerned here. So we're just trying to protect you and protect our money and make sure that we're buying right, rather than trying to figure out a way to make the deal work on the back end.
Right? Exactly. My mentor of mine once said the best deal I ever did was the deal I didn't do. I used to do the same thing when I was flipping house. I did some of my own marketing, but I bought a lot of deals from wholesalers. And, and that's a process. You got to narrow down and figure out which are the good ones, the ones you can trust, and which are the not so good ones. But I've had several times where I had to go back to the wholesaler, say, look, I've vetted your numbers and your ARV is very optimistic. We need to shave, 10, 15, 20, 30,000 bucks off this deal. And that was, thankfully I had a very, very good realtor partner who I trusted really well. And, any deal I ever involved her in, I did well on. If I bypassed her because maybe it came through a different relationship or a different realtor, there were a couple of deals I didn't do so well on. So anyway, those relationships are important. Let's shift gears here a little bit, and let's talk about let's talk about the market a little bit. And then, we've got a little bit of stuff that we were talking about before the show on single family homes and other types of investment classes, asset classes. We can talk about that a little bit, but let's talk about what you're seeing, because you're dealing with a lot of different customers in a lot of different geographies. So your scope is going to be a little bit beyond what mine and or Howard's is. Well, other than talking to our mastermind, our Smart Bar mastermind, and our students, we can share a little bit of that. But I'd like to see what you guys are seeing in the market right now. Uh-oh, you're frozen up. Let me pause. Sure. All righty, where were we?
So we're getting into the market area now.
Yeah. What are you guys seeing in the market there as far as sales, types of properties that are selling best and things like that?
Yeah. So I think what we've run into is that, I think you just have to be smart about how you're buying. I think the market is changing. And if the deal has a lot of hair on it, you really want to make sure that you're buying it right, because it might sit longer than just a property that is relatively flat, has physical legal access, that sort of thing. But generally, if it has a little bit more hair on it, I've been seeing things sit a little bit longer on the market, because maybe I'm just hearing that across the board. So
yeah,
but it's a great opportunity though we've been encouraging everyone to lower their offers.
Right.
yes.
People are starting to lower their offers, which is great.
But I always see that, right? It's like if the market's going down, you're going to get less on the sell side, but you pay less on the buy side. So this is your margin. If the market's going up, you're going to pay more for the property, but you're going to sell it more. So it's like the margins can potentially stay the same. It's just that the buy and sell prices are different. Where that breaks down a little bit is in the transition. Buyers and sellers have expectations which aren't necessarily in line with the market.
Right.
Sellers.
Sellers, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even, I think, yeah.
I mean, we've even had to adjust like deals that are coming in, we're getting offers, and they're definitely like, hey, the market's changing, and we're like, we know. So it's just, we have to also use that on the buy side, and you have to be prepared for that. So that's the biggest thing, is we will always look at it up front. Where are we? We guess that's what the market has been in the last year, but what about the current changes? Because no matter what, I mean, just like the investor, we want to make money. We don't want to waste investors' time. They want to make money. So as long as we're still buying at the right price.
And I think that's where, little plug here, Price Boss can come into play.
Yeah.
There you go.
So,
Know your market. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that's helpful. And I also think when the market is changing like this, it allows you to get more creative with how you're buying properties and how you're selling properties. Maybe we can't sell a property for cash like we could a few months ago, but if we're open to it, we can sell it on terms and then sell that note to a note buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And then how you're acquiring properties, you can maybe acquire it on or with seller financing as well. So, and I know, David, you have a lot of experience with that too.
Well, actually, I don't have a ton of experience. I really just started doing it. I really just started I sent out my first large campaign this week, where I'm mentioning that in the letter, and we've got a script to talk to people about it, and a contract created. But I think in all asset classes now, even in houses and even commercial real estate, with interest rates and everything, hey, we got to get more creative, and creativity can lead to some great deals. I put an offer in I'm also seeing some deals that are for sale. I've seen a couple of deals on Zillow and on Lands of America that warranted, just calling them up and making an offer. I made an offer. It didn't get accepted, but it might in a couple of months if they don't sell it. But it was a deal here in Colorado. I don't do, many splits here because of the water, but this was one that was 148 acres. It was already approved to be able to split into 35s. So it would be, and it was approved for wells. It would be 335s and a 43. And, I put they were asking 340. I offered 290 with 10% down, and then an escalating interest rate and whatnot. So, but essentially my monthly payment would be about $1,500 a month. And then I could sell those 4 parcels for about 3x, about 155 grand, and the larger one about 170 grand on terms, and then 10% down, sell 2 of them. I got my capital out of the deal. And, the way I had it worked out, it would be about a $4,800 net cash flow a month. Or I could sell the notes or sell a couple of them. So when you have a potential to split like that, you can and you're in with, you can pay more. You can pay more for the property if you get the right terms, especially low down payment, because it enables you to turn and offer a really decent, easy down payment. So we need to be thinking about being creative.
Yeah, I can tell you, I know this is the land show, but we invest in mobile homes with land as well. And so I've run into situations where I'm acquiring a manufactured home and the person is very set on a price. And so I worked out a deal where this is an interesting one where I paid them $75 a month and until it was done. And we ended up figuring out what that was, and we ended up let me start over. Basically, we
I always tell him he's not a very good storyteller.
No, I'm not. I'm terrible at it. So we basically I came across this guy. He was very stuck on his price. So I said, I'll give you, I think he wanted $70,000. And so I gave him, I think around $10,000 to $15,000 down. I don't remember exactly the amount. And he said, okay, I'll take that as long as I get my price. I said, okay. And then I'll give you payments of $75 a month at 0% interest.
Yeah.
Until it was paid off. And then later on, I paid him a little bit and a little bit. And then I called him every couple of months and would say, so I just came into a little bit of capital. How about I pay you off a little bit early on this note? If I do that, will you take a discount off of this note? Mm-hmm. And first couple of times he would say, nope. And then there was a point in time where it hit him the right time. I hit him the right time and he agreed. And basically I ended up buying the property for the original price that I was wanting it for, which was half of the 70. So I got it for 45 roughly.
Nice.
But I think you can do the same thing with land.
Totally.
Yeah.
Want to do.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
You can get creative that way, because maybe today they're not willing to do that deal, but maybe in the future that money could help them. And maybe it's not 50% of the note, maybe it's 75% or whatever you're willing to do. Yeah. I'm not saying try to gouge them or anything, but I'm just saying there's certain situations that come up. And I think the deal may start off good, but then you can make it even way better, especially if you're splitting it too, because what happens if David has that deal, or let's say he got it under contract and he agreed to those terms with them. And then, he sold one property, came into a windfall of cash and was like, would you take this amount? And I know it's not the full amount, but I got it. I'm either going to deploy it here or I'll pay you off. But I'm paying you off. I want a discount on the note.
Discount.
And then
that is to plug Note School and Eddie Speed. We recently took his course, and what he talks about is just that, and really from a lot of experience. Guy's done a lot of deals. Said the longer you can get the seller to agree to terms, the further out you can string the payoff. the higher chance you have of them needing the seller coming to a point where they need some more cash at some point during the deal. And where can they get more cash possibly? Their buyer who's making them monthly payments. And so the longer you can string that out, the greater chance you have of buying back your own note at a discount.
In fact, it's even better than a typical land deal because, I mean, land is predicated on finding distressed properties. We never know when somebody's going to be distressed or why. So we just have to constantly throw stuff against the wall and hopefully, it's going to land at the right place at the right time. But in this situation, now you've established the relationship. It's an established business relationship. And now you've got the time. It's just a matter of waiting. Maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe it does. But, you've got a better shot at it. As your example showed, it's just wait till the value of the cash now is greater than the cash later.
Yeah. And all the while you're still making money. So it's all good.
I love that.
And I think they have to see a couple payments come in. And then once they see a couple payments come in, and then maybe there's something in their life where maybe they have to pay for a college education,
right?
Whatever it may be.
Medical expenses, who knows?
Yes. And this guy had a flip that was going on and it wasn't going well and he needed money. And so I said, well, here's what I can do. And he was like, great, let's do it. And then you lock that up quick. You do not sit around on that.
Where can I wire that?
Yeah. Exactly. Like I was like, can you meet tomorrow at the bank? Notarize this.
Exactly. Don't give them time to think. It's like when somebody accepts your an offer and it's a great deal, you get that sucker done as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Or at least get that purchase agreement signed.
Because there's a lot more competition, there's more competition in land now. And so whether or not that's real competition is another story. So they may be making a lot of offers, but they may not have the funds to actually close. So we talk to a lot of investors that, they're worried about, hey, we don't close this other seller told me that, I got a higher offer from this other land investor. And the investors that I know will say, well, I've done this many deals. I'm serious. I can't vouch for the other person, not bad mouthing the other person, but I can't vouch for them. And I've got the money today. And this is my track record. Here are all my references of other previous sellers. Let me know if you want to close. I don't know if you've run into that before or not.
This is a story that Mitch Milam, who's a great investor. He's been on the podcast. He's a regular on our masterminds on the Smart Bar, and he tells that story all the time. He says, "Look, I know what the value of properties are in the area, and if he buys it at that price, he's not going to make any money, and the chances of him actually doing the deal in the end are like slim to none. But if you can get it, you should try." And when it doesn't work out, call me.
Yeah.
You're distorting a little bit again.
Oh, am I okay?
You just dropped the gain a little bit. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I get that all the time where, sellers will be like, well, I got another offer for X amount. And we'll be like, you should take that.
Yeah.
And then when you call them back and take it, and then they call you back and backpedal, then call us back because our offer was the right one. I've had a couple of times where we had a seller say to us, well, we picked you because we felt your price was actually right. It was kind of in the middle. We have all these low balls, and then we've had several times where people are much higher and then they don't close. And so we kind of got a feel for it. And now it's the right timing for us to sell. So we're going to sell to you because we feel like you were, sort of realistic. That's happened a couple of times. I am actually just with the changing market. I'm switching to neutral letters for a while.
Okay.
Yep. And
I think that gives you the ability to really understand their situation and build rapport. I think there's definitely pros and cons.
For sure.
There's much more time involved in it, I feel, depending on how you set up your systems and outsource and have VAs do it. But I think it allows you to structure the deal better too, because they may care more about price than terms. And if you throw out a lower offer and then maybe even if you hint in a letter that you're willing to do other things, they may just be so stuck on that number that they just throw your letter in the trash rather
Very
than
true.
just
Yeah.
think about it. And then when you build that rapport with them, they're like, oh, this guy went to my same school. He must be a good guy. You know,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. Wherever
true.
you can build that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another key point on, especially on the little bit higher price properties, not the, real cheap stuff, but, is, buying on, and your sellers don't know this typically. I mean, a lot of the land investors out there probably don't know this, but, if they're facing because you got somebody you're buying it for $100,000 and they've had it forever, and their cost basis is, nothing or next to nothing. They got a nice little chunk of capital gains tax they're going to have to pay. So buying it on terms allows them to defer and in some cases eliminate capital gains, so that's a huge negotiating point. And they may not know it. So
Actually, they oftentimes don't know it, and that's just the beautiful thing is to be able to present that kind of is such a value add for a lot of people, and it's like a light bulb going off. It's like, wow, I never thought of that.
Well, you could position it like
educate-
this. You could say, well, how would you like to actually make about 20 to 25% more money, more profit on that property?
Yeah.
This is how you do it, by saving taxes.
And I think
Yeah.
that's where you're not someone that they look at as the salesman trying to offer them, or the greedy investor trying to offer them so much money. You're coming off more as an educator to say, hey, this is what I can offer you cash, but if we get a little bit creative here, I can put more money in your pocket and you can give less to Uncle Sam.
Yeah, I'm going to provide you a solution. I'm not going to make you an
Right.
offer. I'm providing you a
Yeah,
solution.
that's exactly. I mean, like back in from my B2B days, it's the difference between price and total cost of ownership.
Yeah, right.
Our price might be a little bit higher, but when you look at everything you have to put together and where you're going to be at the end of the day, you're going to come out ahead, because when you put it as a solution, it's going to save you a lot of money. And so, what good is getting a big paycheck if you have to give it all to Uncle Sam?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, cool. Any other cool little creative twists that you're seeing or executing out there that you want to share with our audience? We're got a little bit time left.
Yeah, I think one of the things that maybe not many people think about, and we're talking about Uncle Sam, is the way that these properties are sold, like bought and sold usually within less than a year. I think it's really important to kind of take advantage of all the different creative vehicles that you can utilize so you pay as little tax as possible. And I think contacting a CPA / maybe tax attorney would be really helpful, because if you're going to be in this business for a while, or any business for that matter, you're going to run into situations where it's not just how much you make, but it's how much you get to keep and how you put it to work for yourself. And so I think I mentioned earlier about the different types of retirement accounts that we have, and there's different nuances with it that you have to be careful about, and how many transactions that you can do in those accounts. And then tax loss harvesting, all these different things. I mean, we're right around tax season here soon, and I'm thinking end of year, investors that have made a chunk of change, they really need to think about, is their entity set up correctly? Have they talked to the professionals to make sure that they're making the most money that they can and keeping the most money? And so I think that's one of the things that we've strived to do this year. We really honed in on that, because we saw so much go out the window to the IRS last year that we're like, oh gosh, we need to put a better plan in place. So I don't know what you guys are doing on that front, but I think people really need to think a little bit more about that, especially with the short-term capital gains type of transactions that we do.
Yeah. I redid a little bit of my stuff this year too. We don't have time to go into the details, but yeah. But hey, if you haven't made the plans, and as a real estate investor, travel, pretty easy to Take a nice little, so book that nice little tropical vacation in December or pay for the all-inclusive so you can go in January and get it paid for this year. That's a good little write-off you can hit before the end of the year. Give yourself a nice vacation. I'm going to do one of those too. So
Actually, there's one idea that Dave gave to me. I went and checked it out with my CPA, and we have employed it, and it is gold. And that is, if you have kids of an appropriate age, get them to work in the business. Almost the age doesn't matter. There's really not that much of a requirement, but I mean, my son's 14. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I pay him, and that covers and that's pre-tax dollars. But he's not making enough that he's necessarily gonna have to file a tax return, and that goes to pay for a lot of his activities that would all have had to been paid for in post-tax dollars. So that's just was a brilliant move right there. I loved it.
yeah, you can do what, up to 12.5 grand a year, and that's a straight deduction for the business, and the kid doesn't have to pay any tax on it. I did that. I set that up for my daughter. I wish I'd done it last year. I did it this year, and so, but she's going to have some tax consequences though, because she makes a bunch of money with her music. So I said, well, let's see what the delta is, and we'll figure it out. But
Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know why.
right.
So that's the problem with your daughter, Dave. She's just too darn good and successful.
I know. Keep the
Haley
ear
and I
out.
still have to go to the
There's
show.
gonna be an album coming in the next
Oh,
Wow.
6 months, I think.
Okay.
So,
I'll keep my eyes peeled.
all right. Well, guys, thanks for coming out. This was really a great chat. And next time we got to do it in person over a cocktail, since you live about 20 minutes from me.
I think that's great.
yes.
I'll fly in. What the heck?
There you
Perfect.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you guys so much. It's been terrific. A lot of nuggets on this one. We really appreciate it. Thank you to our audience, and we will see you next time on the Land.MBA podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, had a bit of fun, and walked away with some actionable insights that you can apply to your business. Dave and I have got some great content and interviews planned, so don't forget to rate and review, and of course subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If we mention any interesting links or tools, you'll find them in the show notes. To learn more about Land.MBA, visit our website at, wait for it, Land.MBA. See you next time on the Land.MBA podcast.